Versus battles in comics. Time and time again, as comic book fans, we often like to pit certain heroes against each other. Who would win in a fight, Captain America or Batman, Superman or Thor? And the other day, I saw a post that really intrigued me, and it was actually talking about one specific character, but multiple versions of this character. And the post basically said, if these four Robins were to walk into a room, who would walk out? And that's why today we're talking Robin versus Robin Battle Royale. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. All right, so the four Robins that we do have for this Battle Royale of the Robins will be Teen Titans Robin, Young Justice Robin, Batman '04 Robin, and Batman the Animated Series Robin. Now, first, to establish a couple of rules before we get into this versus battle royale. First and foremost, we are only going to count things that they did when they were Robin. That means anytime that they become Nightwing, especially in Young Justice, because he spends 3 out of 4 seasons as Nightwing, which means a lot of his feats and a lot of the great things that he does in that series, we can't count because it would be slightly unfair, specifically in that universe, because there's literally 7 years worth of time skip throughout the series. So if we were to include that, it would just be incredibly unfair. However, I do have a sneaking suspicion it might not change who ultimately wins this battle. But with that being said, that is our first rule. The second rule that we are going to go by in this versus battle, I'm not going to calculate what their FTL plus and FTL speeds are. I'm not going to say that their attack power is country level or city level. I often see that when we talk about battles in anime specifically. However, I feel like then you run into the difficulty of power scaling and how different universes are just simply scaled differently. So it's not always fair to do it in that way, just in my opinion, especially for this particular versus battle. With that being said, what we are going to consider is what villains they faced off against, how they fared against those villains, and their greatest feats in each particular show, because I feel like that would definitely impact how well they would do against one another. Yes, they are separate universes, so the villains are going to be at a different level in power. However, if one gets beaten in a landslide versus a different Robin absolutely smokes that villain, yes, that should take into account their battle ability, at least to some degree. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So first and foremost, the first Robin that we do have eliminated from this fight, he will be the one to exit first. That would be Batman the Animated Series Robin. Yes, I know a lot of people love this Robin, love that show, myself included. This was my introduction to the character of Robin, so it is kind of a shame to have to eliminate him first. But if we look at his feats in the show, especially when he is just Robin, he doesn't do much of anything. I feel like his greatest feats were when Batman wasn't there, in the 2-part episode arc where Batman has to go undercover and he discovers Two-Face is actually behind this great scheme to frame the commissioner. But even then, Robin doesn't do much. Robin doesn't take down Two-Face. Yes, he takes down a couple of thugs, and yes, he shows that he is a worthy detective. But outside of that, he doesn't do much of anything. In fact, in Batman's biggest battles in that series, Robin doesn't do anything. I would say Batman's biggest fights in that show would be when Bane arrived and then Ra's al Ghul. If we look at what happened when Ra's al Ghul was there, Robin was kidnapped for the majority of the episode. And yes, it was a 2-part episode. What did Robin do in part 2? He flew the bat plane. Nothing more. He did absolutely nothing. However, he did even less against Bane. Yes, he was able to evade Bane for about 25 to 30 seconds, and he put up a small fight against Bane. However, he was easily overpowered, and he was easily taken down. And not only that, when you have the final battle against Bane, Batman is going one-on-one with him. And why is he going one-on-one with him? Because for whatever reason, Robin decides, while Batman is having this death match against Bane, the undoubtedly strongest opponent Batman has ever faced, Robin remains in the water. And I know a lot of people may say, oh, he was kidnapped. Oh, he was tied up. No, at this moment, Batman had freed him. He is able to join the fight. However, instead of joining in that fight, he decides to invite Rupert Thorne's female assistant in the water with him. And they then spend the next 3 to 4 minutes taking turns dunking each other in the water. No, I'm not kidding. That is not hyperbole. They're literally just dunking each other over and over again in the water while Batman is having this crazy death match. So it is because of that, and because this Robin essentially has no feats and has shown no real ability to be a capable fighter against any actual capable opponent aside from just henchmen, I would have to say that this version of Robin would be our first exit. He would be the one to get eliminated first. However, following shortly behind him would be the '04 Batman version of Robin. Now, yes, this Robin does have more feats than the 1990s Robin. However, this one does not have many feats at all. And that is because, yes, he is introduced in season 4, so he realistically only had 2 seasons to acquire multiple feats. And as these seasons are relatively short, there are less than 12 episodes, he realistically doesn't have much time. I would say his greatest feats to me were when he took on the Everything Men. However, again, this was with the help of the original creator of the belt. That's why he got to make clones of himself. And not only that, Batman was also there. So I can't fully give him credit for that battle either. Another battle I can't give him full credit for was when he took on Black Mask and Black Mask's organization. However, I say I can't give him full credit for that either because it was not just him. Yes, Batman was not there, but you know who was there? Batgirl. And Batgirl did an even amount of work in taking down Black Mask. And even then, they had a struggle. They struggled against the henchmen. And to me, if you are a fully capable crime fighter, you should be able to take down Black Mask and his organization. Nothing against Black Mask or any Black Mask fans, but he is a relatively weak adversary for the Batman. So considering how much of a struggle they still had, even with their combined might, that is why I do have him as the second one out on this list. However, I will say him taking on the Penguin and honestly beating the shit out of the Penguin in only his second appearance is why I have him above the 90s version of Robin, simply because this Penguin isn't an ordinary version of the Penguin. This is a Penguin that literally could throw hands with Batman, that was doing bicycle kicks in the air, and yet Robin still was able to kick his ass. So it is for that reason I have him going out at number 2, still above the 90s version of Robin. However, he does not come close to the next 2 entries on this list. And with that being said, exiting next at number 3 out on this list will be Young Justice Robin. Now, I know this version of Robin tactically is probably the best on this list. And if we were to consider his time as Nightwing, I feel like it would be a much closer fight, and I would have to break it down in a much deeper way, just because of how much time he spent as Nightwing and how many enemies he did face as Nightwing. However, we're not considering his time as Nightwing. We are just taking his time as Robin. But this version of Robin has been Robin for 5 years. He has fought alongside Batman for 5 years. He was able to hack the Justice League systems. And yes, you could say, well, it was the same as the Batcave. And you're right, he literally says that. But he still had the mental capacity to hack the Justice League system, a system that was designed by Batman. So although him knowing about the system definitely went into why he was able to crack the code and hack into it so easily, he still was able to do that. And not only that, we have seen how amazing his tactical mind truly is throughout the series. His different methods of planning. One of the episodes that I think about is when they were in that dream sequence where they were trapped by Miss Martian and the entire Justice League was wiped out, and the entire team continues to systematically get wiped out. And Robin is the one who comes up with the plan to destroy the mothership, and he succeeded. Now, only to a degree, because as I said, they were trapped in a mental landscape. So because of that, they were never going to win after the mothership did get destroyed. Another one just planted right down after it. However, again, if they weren't trapped in that mental landscape, it would have been successful. The plan that he made would have been successful. So that leads into his tactical mind. And we can't underestimate how strong and how capable this version of Robin is. He went toe to toe with the Batman. He fought one-on-one with Batman. Did he win? No, absolutely not. He needed the help of Superboy and a combo move to take down Batman. However, the fact that he was even able to go up against Batman for any amount of time is pretty remarkable. And then he came up with a strategy to use the maneuver with Superboy to take out Batman and to take out Superman. So it is because of those reasons that I have him above the previous two. And not only that, I know we talk about Teen Titans Robin and his strength, but do we all forget that this version of Robin literally punched through concrete as well, simply because he was pissed off about something? So we can't underestimate how powerful this version of Robin definitely is as well. Not to mention him leading a mission going against the Injustice League, led by the Joker and Poison Ivy, and they were successful with their mission. Now, yes, were they bailed out in the end by the Justice League showing up? Yes, absolutely. However, I feel like this version of Robin could have taken out the Joker. And it's also important to note that this version of Robin was trusted to do so by Batman. And Batman often does not like his sidekicks to go up against the Joker. However, in this universe, this version of Robin has garnered that much trust. And it is because of his abilities, because of his tactical mind, that he got that trust from Batman. So it is because of that I have him going out third, second last on this list. However, next up on this list, exiting last, being the champion of champions of this battle royale, we have Teen Titans Robin. Yes, I'm sure this comes as no surprise to any of you watching this video, but Teen Titans Robin was an absolute menace. I don't even need to mention how he absolutely obliterated Psychotech and literally did a knee drop from what, 30 to 50 stories in the Trouble in Tokyo movie, and absolutely beat the shit out of Psychotech, literally stomping him into ink, which yes, he was just made out of ink. However, it still is a pretty crazy feat considering all the things Psychotech was able to survive throughout that movie. So it definitely shows you how much power is behind Robin's punches. And not only that, Robin literally faces an enemy multiple times named Cinderblock. He is walking concrete. And Robin not only takes punches from this person who is made of literal concrete, but he punches and kicks him as well. An enemy that can take blasts from Starfire. And he gets knocked out multiple times by Robin. Not only that, this version of Robin goes toe to toe with Slade, aka Deathstroke. And honestly, for a lot of the fight, he's kind of kicking Slade's ass, depending on which fight we're talking about. Early on in the series, yes, he does get his ass kicked by Slade. However, as time goes on, he is the one that is kicking Slade's ass. Even when they then go to the underworld during the Trigon arc, Robin is the one who goes down there. Robin is the one battling the most demons, and he kind of kicks the shit out of most of them. And it is really quite remarkable. Not only that, but probably his greatest feat in the entire series, and one of the biggest reasons I have him coming out on top of this battle royale, he took down his entire team. And yes, I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, they were holding back. No, they were not. The only person who was genuinely holding back was Starfire, because she refused to use her blasts against Robin. Yes, there was that one moment where Cyborg was charging up his cannon and he decided not to use it. And yes, you could chalk that up to him holding back slightly against Robin. However, you could also look at it like he did not want to hit his comrade. And no, I don't mean Robin. Robin was currently fighting with Beast Boy and Raven in that moment. If Cyborg had blasted him in that moment, there is no way that Cyborg could know that shot would land. Mind you, Robin is incredibly agile. Robin can dodge incredibly easily, and this is something Cyborg knows. So while I do agree that Cyborg may have slightly held back in this moment by not wanting to use his cannon, I also believe that he was not sure he could effectively hit Robin with that move while not causing collateral damage to his team. But on the same note, Robin is also holding back. He literally has a laser attached to his forearm that could take them all out in no time flat. So I would say both sides are holding back to some degree, and yet Robin is still able to kick the shit out of all of them. But not only that, when Robin is disguised as Red X, none of them are holding back. They are using their full might because they do not know that Robin is disguised as Red X, at least not at the time of their first battle. And guess who wins that battle? Red X, aka Robin. So multiple times he has shown the ability to take down multiple enemies. And not only that, in the Contest of Champions episode, we see just how capable this version of Robin is. Not only taking down Aqualad, Speedy, and a myriad of other heroes, but when the final boss has all the abilities of every other hero, Robin challenges him one-on-one. And in that one-on-one fight, has to go up against all of the powers and abilities from every other fallen hero. And not only does he defeat him, but he does it relatively handedly, and he does it without really struggling that much in the battle, showing just how capable this hero truly is. So that is why I have, without a doubt, Teen Titans Robin coming out on top in this Battle Royale fight. But let me know what all of you think. Do you think I'm right in the order in which I have each of these entries exiting this battle? What order would you put these 4 versions of Robin in? And if not, who do you think would win this Battle Royale? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.